like everything else.
Putting it into practice, that's different.
Casey Gray here from The Conscious Builder, and today we have Stephen Magneron here with he's with HomeSol Building Solutions. I'm excited about this conversation. Stephen and I have known each other for a little while now, I think going on 6 years, partly because of the passive house that we built, become good friends and hang out outside of building, but obviously usually talk about building even when we're hanging out outside of work. So I thought it'd be really great to have you involved. I've talked a lot about on other episodes about like integrated design process, which is actually that term was something you introduced me to. Talked a lot about the building science aspect of it. You're the person that we would recommend to bring on. Let's frame the picture a little bit with your background and what you do on your daily basis, what you do at HomeSol, and a little bit about all of your certifications, because I know there's a lot of training that you've done in building science, and like I said, you're my go-to person to ask questions.
So I work at HomeSol Building Solutions. I'm the, I guess you could say I'm the lead energy advisor. I'm a certified energy advisor for everything Canadian, so Guide rating for homes, Energy Star, R2000, Net Zero Energy. I'm a lead green rater as well. I'm also a certified passive house consultant, and that sort of goes into the international realm and is also not just for residential, which HomeSol is mainly focused on, it's also for commercial. There's a lot of training that goes into that, a lot of building science. In each program, the building science is basically the same in its fundamentals. It's just how you apply it and what metrics you put onto it.
So for those listening who might not know all of the acronyms or terms that you just said, there's kind of minimum building code, right? So we're in Ontario, so the Ontario Building Code. Building code is like the worst home you're allowed to build by law, which is exactly what it is, right? So then once you start going beyond that, kind of those terms that you had mentioned, Energy Star, like I know the order of what you can get in terms of energy performance, but maybe if you can explain the difference and what maybe some of the more valuable parts are, for example, for passive house versus LEED or for R2000.
So there are several ways to meet code. But one could be a prescriptive path where you just check off all the boxes and then you meet it. You're done. If you hit all the criteria for it, then it's just a matter of the building inspector ensuring that you've actually built the way that you're supposed to. Where we would come in for the building code is if a house, for example, is overglazed, then we would have to do the energy model to see if they've done enough to compensate for that overglazing.
And overglazing means?
Too much window to wall area ratio. So without getting too nitty gritty with the numbers, it just means that the building code requires a certain amount of the ratio, so I think it's like 22%. If you're over that, then you need to go through this modeling exercise that we go through. Then we go to Energy Star, which is the next step up, which is typically about 20% better than code. Mm-hmm. And once again, there are two paths to achieving it: prescriptive path and performance path. Prescriptive path, there's basically a checklist of minimum requirements, and then they have to do additional stuff to gather enough points to meet Energy Star.
And then performance path
is energy modeling, and then you have to get a certain Guide rating. The new Guide rating system, basically a 0 means it's at net zero energy, including the solar panels. So you generate as much energy as you consume.
If somebody was working with you, it's important to give you all the information so that you can actually guide them correctly. Okay, so we're at minimum building code. Energy Star would be the next step up. Then what would be after that?
The next one after that is R2000, and that's a performance-based only, and it's 50% better than code. So they have to meet a minimum amount of air tightness, mm-hmm. Which is critical for a more energy-efficient home.
And how do you do the air testing?
Air testing is done by a blower door, which is essentially we have a frame that has an airtight membrane on it. We stick a fan in there, and we depressurize the house, and then take a lot of readings and put it into the software, and then it calculates based on the volume of the house how many times the volume air in the house will exchange at a certain pressure.
Okay, so then after R2000, then where do we go to?
Then after R2000, we've got Net Zero Energy. That's run by the Canadian Home Builders Association.
And that one's new.
And that one's new. It's pretty much leading up to what code will be in 2030.
And net zero energy ready means?
Net zero energy ready means no solar panels, but theoretically, if you do put solar panels on, it'll compensate. If you go to net zero energy with solar panels, you still have essentially you're going to be all electric. Then you only have one bill, so you'll never have a zero bill, but you'll have a zero energy bill.
Is there anything after that? Because we kind of jumped, there's still passive house and there's still LEED. So a lot of people have heard of LEED certification because they've done a really good job marketing, mostly in commercial. But there's also passive, which in my experience, people have heard passive and they just think sun, but they don't really know that there's a certification process to it. So what would be the difference between like LEED certification and passive, and where does that fit into the building code to net zero energy?
Okay, so passive house is probably the next one up as far as the energy goes. It has its roots in Canada with the Saskatchewan Conservation House, but then it filtered out to Germany. The Germans made up passive house standard, which is an unfortunate name in the sense that it's a direct translation from passive house in German, which means passive building. So it's not just for houses, it's for commercial buildings as well. It's for any type of building. And it's the most stringent energy standard in the world right now, and it's being adopted globally. But their focus is really on the energy. First, it's comfort. That's the underlying principle behind everything. They just want passive comfort.
One thing you can't measure.
That's right. Yeah. So what you can measure is energy, which is a byproduct of designing and building a house or building that's really comfortable.
I wouldn't say after that. So there's also LEED.
So LEED is essentially a point-based system. LEED is fantastic. It stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. So it doesn't just focus on energy like passive house does in that sense. It also focuses on where you build, the materials that you use to build, the handling of waste, how much water you use. As far as the energy side goes, you could build a code-built home and still be LEED Platinum because you've located it in a really good spot and you've checked off a whole bunch of other markers that get you enough points.
So there's pros and cons to both, right? So one really cares about the energy, which is important, but one cares about materials and waste, like you said, which is also important, which affects us all. Where do you kind of see, like there's all these building standards and now there's a new one with the net zero energy or net zero energy ready. Where do you see the industry going?
Well, I think the net zero energy ready target for building code is ambitious. Considering how slowly the building industry tends to move. CHBA's, the Canadian Home Builders Association's initiative to get things going now is great. Then we can really find out what it would take to get most homes to net zero energy ready. Why
did you get into this? You have a background, you did carpentry for a while, you did the advanced housing program, I believe. I believe you're like valedictorian, graduated top of your class when you did that. What keeps you going today? Why did you get in originally and what keeps you going today?
Grew up in Australia, traveled around Europe and a little bit of Asia, and when I met my wife, who was from Ottawa, we decided that we were going to live here and start our careers here. I guess in my travels, it just got me thinking that if I'm going to choose a career, I need to find something that will do good in the world. And so I looked around and I found the advanced housing course, and it seemed like it was right on line. I had done a little bit of carpentry work as I was traveling around, and so I kind of dipped my toe into it. And so this particular course was a combination of both the theoretical side of things as well as the carpentry and the practical side of that. Then once I graduated from that, I worked for a renovation company in Ottawa that had won a few green awards, was open to doing better, and so I worked with them for a couple of years before I started at HomeSol. Now my focus is just to help people and builders build the best homes they can build.
Okay, so what keeps you going today? So you mentioned what interested you in it and why you wanted to get into it, but why do you jump out of bed in the morning and are you excited to go to work? Maybe you're not, I don't know.
There's always new projects that come by my inbox, and we have more builders that want to build to net zero energy. And if we could get all buildings to net zero energy, then that's great, and I've been a part of that. If we could get a lot of commercial projects to net zero energy and passive house as well, then that would be wonderful because they're a big part of the building stock as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously the renovation side of things. We spoke about the incentive programs, but in my opinion, there needs to be more incentives to to focus on the enclosure of the house rather than mechanical systems, except for the ventilation system, obviously.
Yeah.
But if we could have more case studies like that, then that would be incredible, and get retrofits down to net zero.
What are you doing in your spare time outside of work? Because I'll message you about stuff all the time, and you'll get back to me. And it's usually about work-related or energy advising or something like that. But what are you doing in your spare time when you're not modeling homes and doing blower door tests and meeting with builders?
Well, I'm a father of two beautiful girls, Annika and Lenny. They're 10 and 8, and they're both into gymnastics. Annika's very competitive. They're both in competitive gymnastics, but Annika's at a pretty high level. So they take up a lot of, their schedule takes up a lot of my schedule.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. So apart from that, I try and stay healthy. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Spend a lot of time driving.
Yeah, try and influence the family on how they should eat, but then it gets flipped for whatever reason, as it normally does. Try and stay active myself.
Mm-hmm. If you had the world in your classroom and you're going to teach a lesson, but you had to attract people to it, what would the title of that lesson be?
I guess it would be conservation first. Whether we're talking about the building of a house, buying stuff in your house to fill it, you really want to conserve first.
I like it.
Yeah.
And that pretty much goes for all of life's aspects, right? If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can check us out at homesol.ca. I have a Twitter handle is Magneron. The website's probably the best place to go to.
Okay, and then all your contact info's there, and
That's
everybody's there.
Yeah, contact us if you want to make your house more energy efficient, more comfortable.
You definitely want to make sure, no matter who your team is make sure that you have the right team and that they work well together from the start. Once again, I've talked about the integrated design process, and this is who you need. You need an energy advisor, you need your contractor, you need your designer, you need everybody up front working together. That's the only way you're going to get the best bang for your buck, in my opinion, and get what you're going after, because everybody in the industry will bring different experience and different knowledge, and the idea is that one person doesn't need to know everything, because we all specialize in our field and we just need to work together because we're all working towards the same thing at the end of the day. Stephen, thanks for coming out. It was a joy.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.